Community advocates feel Rockford should revisit the home rule debate.
Without the legal status, some say the city's hands are tied, unable to implement major policies. WIFR's Nathaniel Langley learns Mayor Tom McNamara agrees.
Sydney Mike voters abolished the city's access to sweeping powers under Mayor John McNamara. The current McNamara attempted to return it in his first term. Now in his third, he keeps the door open for another referendum. Mayor Tom McNamara feels Rockford rides shotgun in Illinois. He wants to return it to the driver's seat.
We can't control our own destiny.
In 2018, voters rejected an attempt to return home rule.
So as mayor of the largest city in the state of Illinois without home rule, you're literally governing with one arm tied behind your back.
In what ways?
It's nonstop things that you are constantly having to ask the state for.
The city lost most of its broad powers for items like taxes and buildings in a 1983 referendum.
I mean, my father was mayor in 1983. I know exactly what happened.
Archives from the Rockford Register-Star show the city's property taxes jumped $10 million in the 1970s.
We had no money to keep basic core services like police, fire, and public works moving.
Just after former Mayor John McNamara raised property taxes, 54% of voters abolished the powers, the same margin seen in the 2018 referendum.
What should have happened is they should have voted him out instead of getting rid of home rule if they felt that strongly about it. It's short-sighted, it's small-minded.
McNamara says collaboration with home rule communities supports Rockford. That includes Belvedere. The two oversee a regional land bank to fight blight.
We have gotten through this because we have an incredible city team that is constantly creative.
If the status returned, the mayor says taxes could focus on hotels, not homes.
That's where we should be getting the revenue, not off the backs of people who live here.
Voters can decide again on home rule either if city council puts it on ballots or through a community petition.
I think citizens need to stand up and start taking pride in the place that they call home.
The Rockford Area Realtors Association was one of the largest critics of the 2018 home rule referendum. We reached out to them, but their team wasn't available for comment Friday.
Thank you, Nathaniel. And to get a referendum on the ballot, a petition needs the same number of signatures as 8% of votes cast in the last governor's race. Kind of an interesting way to do it. And for Rockford, that magic number is about 2,922 signatures.